Welcome to April's Garage. The party is over, officially over for EV people buying new and used EVs. That tax credit is going away
She pounded the table.
1st. That means I'm serious right there. Oh yeah, with Trump's big beautiful bill, no more tax EV credit coming at you.
Well, who cares? It made for some really, really aggressive leases on cars, and that's how they were moving cars. But yeah, in this article, Stephanie Valdez, Streety says, now is the time to buy. And I don't know.
Well, the tax credit was supposed to run until 2032. So this is kind of an abrupt kickback where we're going to get rid of it.
I don't think there's any time to buy a new EV. There is plenty of time to buy a slightly used EV, like what we did with the EQS, and have $80,000 in depreciation or whatever, 70-80% off of its MSRP.
Right.
Same with so many of these others, which if the tax credit goes away, will the used prices go back up? I don't think so.
But to qualify for that tax credit for a used EV, it has to be $25,000 or more to qualify for it. With the depreciation of used EVs, it might be hard to come by very shortly.
Right. So incentives on new cars, they're saying, are already 14%. So they're already giving 14% off on average when it comes to electric cars just to get them moving. And then the tax credit for $7,500 would help that even more. And what these manufacturers are doing and how they're moving any of these expensive electric cars is leasing them really aggressively. So say it's a $100,000 EV and they're giving $15,000 off, and then they get a $7,500 tax credit on top of that, then they're over $20,000 off, if my math's working. Is my math working?
I wasn't listening.
I know, I was doing math. So it's over $20,000 off on a $100,000 car, and then they say, okay, the lease, at the end of the lease in 3 or 4 years, it's worth this amount. And so then they can do like a cheap lease for $300, $400, $500 a month on an expensive car. Somebody feels like they're getting a great deal, and then the manufacturer gets their butt absolutely kicked when they have to take the car back and then sell it to someone else, sell it at auction. So that's how we got the Mercedes EQS, which I know it was incentivized even back in 2022. They were advertising these things for 15, 20 grand off. But even if they got $1,000 a month for that car for 3 years, $36,000, it lost over 80 grand in MSRP. It was MSRP when new. So that's a big kick for them, a big loss. The other problem with this, as far as the ultra luxury ones, there was an income threshold. So if you made like over $300,000 a year for like a couple filing jointly, or $150,000, then you wouldn't qualify. So that takes a lot of.
Can you imagine going through the process of buying an EV and then all of a sudden finding out that you don't qualify for that $7,500 credit?
Well, I'm very fortunate that I don't qualify, because I was looking at some where, like my sister in Colorado, because Colorado has a $7,500 rebate, and then there was the government rebate. So there was literally a $0 a month lease. You just pay the taxes on a Fiat 500e. And you bet for $50 a month, I'm leasing that, but I don't qualify because of the income. I could figure out in Colorado and do it, like co-sign it with my sister and all that stuff since she lives out there. But because of the income, thanks to you all watching YouTube videos, I didn't qualify, so I couldn't do it.
Well, and then also the price of the car has to be under a certain amount to qualify as well. So for trucks, it's $80,000, and cars and SUVs, $50,000. And if it's a used car, then it has to be at least $25,000 or less. And that, if it's more, they assume, you have more money because you're buying a more expensive car, and so they're not going to give you that rebate.
And Trump said that this was the big falling out between him and Elon. It was because Elon wanted to keep the EV mandate, and Trump was getting away with it. That's why Elon's so mad at him. But
why doesn't Elon just discount his cars to make it more,
Elon had said over and over again that he's not mad that he wanted this to happen anyway. He just wanted to be competitive. So he says he doesn't care. We'll see. It'll be interesting what he does. Will he just say, okay, the cars are now $75 off anyway, which further undercuts people that have bought already? Because imagine like somebody who bought a Tesla Cybertruck for $102,000, and they just keep cutting the price, because that's originally what it was with the Foundation series. What I paid for it, sold it for $111, and now it's worth somewhere in the 60s. But if they keep just lowering the price, Tesla's very different in that sense versus like Mercedes or Cadillac or whatever, where they do incentives. So the sticker price never changes, but then it's 20, 30 grand off
Right.
once you just wink at the salesman once, because
Oh,
they
is
have
that how it works?
they have to incentivize it. So I was just at the Mercedes dealer today picking up the Maybach and was talking to them about Mercedes G-Wagons. And G-Wagons could be the exception to this as far as the huge electric vehicle depreciation, because normally they just completely just tank in value.
Wait, why does the G-Wagon get an out from this depreciation?
Because it's a G-Wagon. They're cool.
And that's
G-Wagons
supposed to
hold their
save
values.
it?
So that's what we're wondering, is the G-Wagon going to be the one that bucks the trend, the first EV where does it hold its value like a G-Wagon, or does it go like an EV and just completely tank? And the manager told me, well, we're already discounting these things 15, 20 grand.
The
Right off the bat.
EV version.
The EV G-Wagons.
Wow.
So they're already having to incentivize them to dump them.
Did they come up over the other ones that aren't EV? Are they more expensive?
About the same. It's about the same price. That's the thing. So they're in the mid hundreds right now, $150,000, $170,000, and yeah, they're having to incentivize to move the EV G-Wagons, which
only dictates that they're probably going to have a huge depreciation, perhaps. I don't know. I've heard other people talk about that too, like Doug DeMuro, thinking it's not going to happen. There's not going to be the depreciation, but if they're already having to discount, maybe the writing's on the wall. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. Speaking of EV sales, GM kind of shot themselves in the foot because Honda platform sharing with them, and now Honda's outselling GM. And it's pretty wild to see that.
It's a very weird thing. I mean, we used to see it back in the day with like the, Isuzu Trooper going over to General, all kinds of weird stuff with Japanese. But this platform sharing is very interesting. A Pontiac Vibe with a Toyota Matrix or whatever.
Or the Lyric with the Honda Prologue.
Yeah, this is the latest one. So a Honda Prologue and the Acura ZDX share the same platform as the Chevy Blazer EV and our dearly departed Cadillac Lyric.
Very sad, but I think they need to get rid of the Blazer. They're not selling a lot of them. And Cadillac actually sold 50% more EVs this year in 2025 than they did last year.
Yeah, they're all doing well considering, but Honda sold 16,000 Prologues so far this year. Chevy sold 13,000 Blazer EVs.
Right.
So those are supposed to be the same cars, Honda and Chevy, kind of the same type of class or whatever in brand. And then the ZDX 10,335 versus Cadillac's 9,317 Lyrics.
But so here's the thing, there's way more Chevy dealers. There's like twice as many, maybe 3 times as many Chevy dealers, and they're still not doing good. They're still
I would say, the prices on the Lyrics are a lot higher, and 9,000 Lyrics is probably pretty good. They're talking about that it's good for them, that they're happy with that. I'm surprised that they sold that many Blazer EVs. I didn't think those things would move as well as that, but people are buying them. But the real reason is when you look at the advertised lease prices, and it's really easy to see that Honda and Acura will give the cars away, at least advertised, a lot easier than Chevy. So like a Honda Prologue, you can see them advertised for like $200 and $269 a month with like $4,000 down.
Right.
The same thing with the Acura ZDXs, which are luxurious, $429 a month, putting $3,000 or $4,000 down. Now you go to Chevy, $349 a month versus 200s, so over $100 more a month for the same lease deal. And then Cadillac, $700 a month.
Whew, that's a big difference for pretty much essentially the same car.
Right. That's where I'm very surprised that the ZDX isn't just completely crushing, because it had like $200 a month. That really adds up over life. That makes a big difference as far as affordability. And how are these cars made on the same assembly line and basically have the same features?
Right.
But they're able to price them as far as the leasing and all that stuff that differently to where one is smoking the other.
Right. Well, do you think if people actually also knew that they were exactly the same car? Because I don't think that's like mainstream knowledge.
I guess
if they knew, would then they choose the cheaper car automatically because they know that it's the same car?
Well, that's the thing, because people want to buy Japanese quality. So they're buying a Honda and Acura thinking they're getting like a well-built Japanese car, and instead they're getting an built American car. Which I guess it doesn't matter. It's all about perception or whatever, or it's all about the deal. Obviously, getting an Acura, they're incentivizing like they're doing with the tax credit with the leases. I wonder when that tax credit goes away, are they able to do a $200 Honda Prologue lease? And then is that going to become a $500 Honda Prologue lease? And then they are all sunk. that will EVs just completely tank and sales crater after this? And I think it's certainly a possibility. But the used value on all these platforms sharing or not, they're pretty rough. So we sold the Cadillac Lyriq, but it was a 2023 for $32,000. We sold it to Give Me the VIN, John Clay Wolfe, who we interviewed back when he sold the first Cybertruck.
He's just so free when he talks. Like, he doesn't care who's listening, if we're being recorded. He just speaks like off the cuff, but it's so real and authentic.
Yes. Well, and he was talking at one auction most recently.
Yes.
And
tell the story.
I think I can tell the story because he was selling a pair of Maseratis that were identical. And this seller had passed away. And for whatever reason, he decided to describe the seller as a gay man.
Right.
And gay guys, they take great care of their cars, very meticulous or whatever.
I would agree with that.
Which, okay. But then he decided to add at the end, he didn't die of AIDS, he actually died of COVID. Which was just like, what? And he's saying this live. Thousands of people are listening. And it was just...
I know. He's just like coming out with the truth. Like, you can't make that stuff up. He's not trying to push the sale. He's just like talking and it's just going.
His internal monologue. Yeah. So he beat CarMax by a little bit, took it and sold it and made actually a little bit of money because I saw it sell and it sold for $34,000.
That's a nice vehicle description. We need more of that at Bear Checks and our vehicle
I know, exactly.
More personal descriptions.
There were no 2023 as far as the prologues and the ZDX. They had a little bit of a head start. So we have to go on 2024's on average wholesale value. And this is using Manheim MMR, which is the largest auction network here in the country. And considering they're the same cars, it's a pretty big spread. So the Honda Prologue front-wheel drive, $22,000 the average MMR.
Ooh.
Low. Once again, this electric depreciation is nuts. The ZDX, $37,500. So even though it's the same car, it's worth almost double.
Do you think that we're going to start seeing, because they're so cheap and affordable, people like sourcing gently used batteries from these really, really cheap SUVs to put in to like the new, fancy, luxurious EV swaps?
I don't think you could do it with the way the packs are, So you can have batteries made from the cells and all that stuff. It's the drive motors and all that stuff that people are like Tesla swapping as far as the drive motors and stuff. But the batteries are pretty specific to the cars usually as far as, how they mount up in the case that they are in and stuff like that. But I suppose you can rip the cells out and make your own little case for it, I suppose. But the ZDX is interesting because it's almost double, even though it's the same car. We saw 20-something thousand, like 21,000 for the Prologue, $37,500 for the ZDX. And then Blazer EV, $30,800. So it's right in between there, even though it's the same price as the Prologue. It's pretty weird. So in between, really, that makes most sense. And then the Lyriq, $40,800.
Fancy.
It's worth the most.
Luxurious.
Which would make sense because it's the most expensive. But it's within $2,000 of the ZDX that's a lower price. So really, the residual on that ZDX is pretty strong for the electric car as far as, I think, the winners as far as the percentage.
I'm going ZDX here. I think that takes...
There's a fly attacking. Won't leave me alone.
Poor you.
But pretty wild. Even though it's the same car. The same platform. For wildly different used values.
Does that show how superficial we are because we want the name Cadillac or we want the cool trim and the fun accessories on it?
Yeah.
Because does it really matter?
People are dumb.
Well, we're very dumb, actually, because we all like that stuff. Thanks so much for watching.